It's Friday, October 11th, and this is the Daily Medical News, where we bring you clinical medicine's top headlines, as well as a closer look at the day's biggest story. I'm Mary Ellen Schneider.
And I'm Terry Rudd. Today, California passes a trio of laws on drug costs, maternal health, and easier access to PrEP.
Firearm-related deaths are on the rise.
How a lifetime of indoor tanning boosts the risk of squamous cell carcinoma.
And flu vaccination modestly cuts hospitalization risk in patients with COPD.
Plus, a real-world trial backs the practice of using as-needed inhalers for mild to moderate asthma.
California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law 3 bills intended to lower drug prices and increase access to prescription drugs. The pay-for-delay bill bans pharmaceutical companies from keeping cheaper generic drugs off the market. The bill prohibits agreements between brand name and generic drug manufacturers to delay the release of generic drugs, defining them as presumptively anti-competitive. The second bill, SB 464, is intended to improve Black maternal health care. The bill is designed to reduce preventable maternal mortality among Black women by requiring all perinatal health care providers to undergo implicit bias training, and it beefs up data collection at the California Department of Public Health to better understand pregnancy-related deaths. The third bill, SB 159, aims to widen the use of pre-exposure prophylaxis and post-exposure prophylaxis against HIV infection. The bill allows pharmacists in the state to dispense PrEP and PEP without a doctor's prescription, and it prohibits insurance companies from requiring prior authorization for patients to obtain PrEP coverage.
After years of relative stability, firearm-related mortality in the U.S. rose sharply starting in 2015. That's according to an analysis of a national mortality database by researchers at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. U.S. firearm mortality rose nearly 14% between the period 1999 to 2014 and the years of 2015 to 2017. The mortality rate was 10.4 per 100,000 person years during 1999 to 2014. That rate rose to 11.8 during 2015 to 2017. The majority of the 612,310 firearm deaths over the entire study period were suicides. Suicides' proportion of firearm mortality rose slightly, from 58.6% in 1999 to 2014 to 60% in 2015 to 2017. Homicides made up 38% of firearm deaths in 2015 to 2017. While the combined share of unintentional and undetermined deaths dropped from 2.9% to 2.1%. 29 states had a mortality rate increase of more than 20%. Only 3 states, California, New York, and Rhode Island, and the District of Columbia, saw a decline of at least 12.5%.
Women who accumulated more indoor tanning sessions over time significantly increased their risk for squamous cell cancer compared with women who never engaged in indoor tanning. Simon Lergenmuller from the University of Oslo and his co-authors analyzed data on almost 160,000 participants in the Norwegian Women in Cancer study. Their goal? Determine if there's a dose-response association between indoor tanning and risk of SCC. In the study, almost 70% of the women reported ever use of indoor tanning. The overall risk of SCC rose with increasing numbers of indoor tanning sessions. Those with the highest use of indoor tanning were 83% more likely to develop SCC than those with no use of indoor tanning. The researchers noted that the association between cumulative exposure to indoor tanning and SCC risk was the same regardless of duration of use and age at initiation. The risk of SCC was about 40% higher, a significant difference, among women with 10 years or less of tanning bed use and among those with more than 10 years of use, compared with never users. The study appears in JAMA Dermatology. We'll be back with more medical news after this message.
Influenza vaccination modestly cut the risk of flu-linked hospitalizations in people with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Data suggests that 70% of COPD exacerbations are caused by infection, and flu is often the cause. All major COPD practice guidelines recommend seasonal flu vaccination, but researchers at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center in Toronto say the evidence is limited that vaccination reduces hospitalizations and death. So the researchers looked at how effectively flu vaccination prevents laboratory-confirmed flu-associated hospitalizations in community-dwelling older patients with COPD. In an analysis of nearly 22,000 patients, vaccinated COPD patients were less likely than unvaccinated COPD patients to test positive for the flu, at 15% versus nearly 19%. And the adjusted estimate of vaccine effectiveness against laboratory-confirmed influenza-associated hospitalizations was 22%. But after the investigators corrected for misclassified vaccination status among COPD patients, the estimated effectiveness rose to 43%. The findings appear in the Journal of Infectious Diseases.
Asneeded inhaled corticosteroids plus a long-acting beta agonist are at least comparable to maintenance inhaled steroids for preventing severe exacerbations in patients with mild to moderate asthma. That's the key finding from a new Phase 3 trial presented at the 2019 ERS International Congress by researchers from the Medical Research Institute of New Zealand in Wellington. In showing similar or modestly improved efficacy for the as-needed approach in mild to moderate asthma, the real-world practical trial's findings mirror those of 3 previous studies, and the study's authors say it offers reassurance that an as-needed approach is adequate for patients who aren't sufficiently adherent to daily maintenance therapy. In the study, 890 patients were randomized to one of 2 regimens. One group used a single inhaler containing 200 micrograms of budesonide plus 6 micrograms of formoterol as needed for symptoms. The second group underwent a maintenance regimen with the same dose of budesonide taken twice daily. Patients were followed for 52 weeks. Practical's primary endpoint was the per-patient number of severe exacerbations, defined as need for 3 consecutive days of oral corticosteroids or an emergency department visit to receive oral corticosteroids. The investigators found that the as-needed approach reduced the relative risk of that primary endpoint by 31% compared with maintenance therapy. The time to first exacerbation approached significance in favor of as-needed treatment, and there was no difference in asthma control. And that's it for today's Daily Medical News. Be sure to catch the latest episodes of the MD Edge CardioCast and Post-Call podcasts, available today and every Friday. For MD Edge, I'm Mary Ellen Schneider.
This week's stories were contributed by Ted Bosworth, Jeff Craven, Randy Dotinga, Lucas Frankie, Richard Frankie, Sarah Freeman, Alicia Gallegos, Eric Greb, Tara Haley, Mark Lesney, Bianca Nogrady, Kari Oakes, Will Pass, Jake Remley, Jennifer Smith, Heidi Spleet, and Michelle Sullivan. Our editors include Kathy Scarbeck, Denise Fulton, Therese Borden, Katie Lennon, Glenn Williams, Richard Peasy, Laura Nicolaides, Catherine Nellist, Jeff Evans, Elizabeth Meshkati, Laura McGlade, Mark Lesney, Gina Henderson, and Catherine Hackett. And I'm Terry Rudd. If you like what you hear on the Daily Medical News, leave us a review or a rating on Apple Podcasts. And check out the full stories available via the links in the podcast notes. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here next week.